All right, people watching the stream, just so you know, this is a brand new audio pipeline. So it looks like the levels are good out there in TV land, but I might tweak the stream a little bit over the next few months or next few days, depending on how this goes. All right. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are talking about something that I can't believe we have never talked about on Geek Nights, BTAS, Batman, the animated series. So I moved into this building a decade ago, and when I moved in, the literal first thing I did was walk around the apartment, look at stuff, and the second thing I did was arrange for Verizon Fios to come install itself.
That's right.
So
it installed itself. Whoa.
Well, someone came, and back then, Fios was a lot harder to get installed than it is now. They put this gigantic fucking box in the wall of my apartment, filled with a giant battery and all this crap and all these things for phone service that I didn't need. And I've had the router that they gave me and that box just running as is for a decade. I have this ancient plan that's 60 up, 60 down. And I randomly logged into the site the other day and just looking at the account, because occasionally I log into accounts I have and make sure there's nothing new we're doing. And they had a thing where I could basically get more speed, because the plans are so different now from a decade ago.
Our plan is 300 or 400 up, and something like that.
So I'm paying now $25 a month less to get from 60 to 100. And I think they incentivized it because they came, and in the meet me room in the building, they replaced a bunch of Verizon shit down there. And then they pulled that entire box out of my wall, and now in the giant compartment where that box was, there's just one tiny little ONT just hanging out there with the fiber terminating in it.
Yeah. I mean, that's 10 years of advancement.
Yeah. The new router they gave me actually works way better.
That router looks enormous and doesn't look at all like the one I got.
Oh, yeah, the router's enormous, but it has modern, really good Wi-Fi. The old router was real old. And
yeah, I mean, the one they gave me has really good Wi-Fi. I just don't like the UI when you go to its web interface.
Yeah, the UI is not great.
It has a surprising number of features, but not as many as a Netgear router.
But I can do full port forwarding. I could set up DMZs.
Yeah, you can do all that kind of stuff.
I got routing rules, DHCP configuration.
It's
DNS.
just really hard and annoying to do anything like that.
Yep. But so the funny thing is, I learned something kind of sad about everyone in this building. Apparently, the Verizon guy said I was literally the last person to have the old busted Fios, ancient Fios shit. So when he came in, he goes to replace it, and he tries to put the router in the front closet. By itself. There's no Ethernet cables or anything over there. And I was like, whoa, no. You got to get that into my computer room like the last guy did. And he's like, well, do you have Ethernet running over there? And of course I don't, because this building, there's no way to get Ethernet over there, because the cable path to get to my closet goes outside of my apartment into building infrastructure. So basically I was like, oh, I already got it set up. And he comes in and he's like, oh, you're using the coax. I've never seen someone actually get that going. How'd you do it? And I thought back, and I remembered something I'd forgotten. When the first Verizon guy came 10 years ago, he went to set up all my crap, and I was like, I'm going to cancel this unless you can get this thing into my computer room. I'm not using wireless only. This is 2010. It's a modern era. I want wired internet. So we start fucking around, and there's all these Ethernet ports in our apartment. As far as we can tell, they just go to hell. They don't go anywhere. But
oh yeah, I see some right there. Those definitely look like they go to the telephone.
Yeah, one's an RJ50, a telephone, and one's an RJ45.
Oh, really? Okay.
There is a cable in there.
Yeah, the top one does look a little bigger.
So he gave me his toner, and I went around trying to figure out where these cables go, and they just go nowhere. They go to the abyss. They're gone forever. But there is a coax network in my apartment that goes to every room.
Yeah, it's probably because Time Warner was also in this building. I've seen them in the lobby. That's for cable television.
And I toned it, and one of the ports in the bedroom and the living room and the computer room was also live in the front closet near the Fios box. So So I was like, will this work? And he put he did a signal tester, and he was like, there's nothing else using it. I'm pretty sure there's an unterminated coax cable in the basement of this building in the meet me room, just like plugged into nothing, and that's where the other shitty service would go if I used them.
Well, yeah, what it is, because I've seen in my previous apartment, right? It was only Time Warner, and basically what they have in the basement is this block, right?
Yep.
That building had 12 apartments, and in the block there were 12 places to hook up cable. Then there were 12 wires with stickers on them that said which apartments they were.
Yep.
And if you didn't pay, they just unplugged your wire from the thing, and then it was in a metal box with a lock on it, so you'd have to bust it open to give yourself cable.
Yep. Our building has like a full-on meet me room for all the equipment in here, and there's already
This is
fiber.
this is in the laundry room.
Yeah. This is like in the basement of the building, but they run fiber of a bunch of different types and coax, and it looks like Ethernet too, to every apartment. So that's all set up now.
Yeah, my new apartment just has Ethernet in the wall, and it just works. I didn't have to do anything.
Yep. But the guy was basically like, seems like you know what you're doing. That's pretty clever using the coax. And he was kind of excited about it, so we hooked it all up, and it worked fine. So my internet
I wonder if because it's coax, if it might be like your max, if you want
It
to
is. So coax
your max speed might be lower.
Coax, my max speed is around 100 no matter what I do.
Yeah, see, you can buy, like, we chose the plan that was like 300 or 400-ish.
Yep, I could
right?
get that.
There was a higher plan that was gigabit, and it's like, 10, 15, 20, maybe $20 more
You ain't
a
using
month.
that.
It's like, with the speed, we've never used all that we've got with the 300, 400.
Dude, if I bought gigabit, you know what I would do?
I think we could
I would just be a fake like bootleg ISP and sell internet to everyone
Right,
else
our friends
in
who
my
live in the same building, they got the gigabit, and I'm like, why? You're spending like $1,000 a year.
I mean, to put it in
nothing.
perspective, we're streaming GeekNights live right now. You know how much that's using? 6.
Yeah, we're streaming 1080p content up takes 6.
6 megabits per second.
That's right.
So I got 100 now, and I tested it, and despite the coax being the limiter, I get about 98 down reliably, and I get about 140 up, which is fascinating. But I think we did an ancient show about like wires and stuff, where I think we explained coaxial cable and like why that is a limitation, but that's neither here nor there. I got a whole new digital pipeline for GeekNights. I got all new internet. The computer room's like nicely cleaned up. I got a brand new bed. I got a brand new armoire. This is the shit that you get excited about.
Spending all his money.
Yeah,
he's getting in line for that. He went first class on the flight to and from PAC South.
Well, If
anyone out there is setting up their guillotine, I got Rim's name is high on the list.
This is not first class like you get a little room or a bed. This is American domestic first class, meaning the seat's slightly wider and they give you food.
Costs way more money than sitting in the back.
Yeah, but I did not pay that money. I got the upgrade on the way there
He
free.
claims he did not pay all that money.
Dude, business travel gives you status on like every airline, and they'll just give you free upgrades. The flight there was not sold out, so I got like trivial, just free upgrade. On the way back, the flight was definitely going to sell out and was already pretty crowded.
Amanda actually had an empty seat next to her, so it was maybe only 99.999% sold out.
So I was not willing to pay extra money for first class on a domestic flight because it would have been like several $100s. That's not worth it.
The flight was the base flight was only $200 or $300.
Yep, but I have a shit ton of points and miles on Delta, so I spent miles to upgrade to first class, which basically cost me almost nothing. I had to pay like a $20 fee to use the miles, but that also paid for the flight, so I got the flight free. So just if you fly a lot, just try to always fly like the same airline, and you'll just automatically get a bunch of free stuff.
Anyway.
So it's Wednesday. We're back. We're bad. We got a lot to talk about. Still can't believe we didn't talk about BTAS, so we'll get to that. But there is a bunch of animation news. First off, I didn't even know this movie was coming. The trailer
not
dropped
until today. Because I was looking. If you don't know, Weathering with You, the new Makoto Shinkai joint,
like just came out,
is currently in theaters in the U.S.
It's breaking box office records.
They had
in Japan.
They had 2 nights. Well, that was a while ago. They had 2 nights of like fan preview screenings, and then after that, it was just regular screenings. So this is the Makoto Shinkai who did Your Name and whatnot, right?
Yep.
Cloudman.
Place
right?
Promised in our early days.
Right. That's where we met him first. Anyway, so this is his new movie. And it's
Weathering You we'll talk about first.
Right. I've been trying to like, get everyone together to go see it, and the movie theater here has been showing it, but at weird times. So I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going to see it tomorrow with or without anyone else.
Yep. Emily and I already saw it, so we're good there. won't review it right now because we're obviously going to review it on Geek Nights, but to give you a geek bite, what I will say about it is that it is the most Makoto Shinkai in terms of...
I mean, this is a guy who is just, he's like, he knows what his thing is, and rather than like try to go out of his box, he just goes more and more in his box.
This one...
He's like, all right, now we're going to make it, every movie I've ever made is actually secretly about clouds. I'm just going to make a movie weathering with you, literally directly up in your face with the clouds.
Yep. Not to spoil anything, but it's kind of about a girl that turns into a cloud.
Yeah, that's the most Makoto Shinkai thing I've ever heard.
It's also about climate change.
Yeah, you don't say.
And it's also about lovers separated by space and time.
You mean every Makoto Shinkai movie that's about lovers separated by space and time?
Yep.
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't think it's his best movie. I think Your Name is a much better, tighter movie. I enjoyed Weathering With You a lot, but it has a few...
Wasn't there that one he made that was real, man? The one we saw at New York Comic Con?
Oh, Children Who... So it's funny, I was talking to Emily, and I was like, I think this is his worst movie after Weathering With You. Like, it's still a high bar, but I think it's his worst one. And Emily was like, what about Children Who Chase Lost Voices? I was like, oh shit, that's his worst movie.
Voices from Deep Below was not good.
Children Who Chase Lost Voices is basically just like an ersatz Ghibli movie.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell that thing was. I remember seeing it and not getting what the hell was going on.
Take Laputa and remove the environmental storytelling and replace it with a plot that goes nowhere.
Maybe I should watch it again just to see what the hell was.
It's pretty. Yeah. Weathering With You is...
I put it in the same bucket as the Ghibli, you know.
Oh, the Ghibli, yeah. We will not speak of Goro's bad movie.
Yeah, that one.
But the one thing I'll say about Weathering With You, without spoiling anything, that the two things that disappoint me is, one, there's one reading of the movie that is about relationships. That's a pretty good, like, there's a good message there. There's a good theme there that's told pretty well through the story. But there's a much more direct reading that is kind of a problematic message about climate change. Now, maybe you shouldn't try that hard to try to stop it.
Really? Okay.
Like, just live with it, like, weather it out. Like, it's hard to... You'll see when you watch it.
Anyway.
What I mean.
So
and the only problem with it involves a gun.
Okay. Well, Japan, you know, a gun is a big deal.
Yeah, the gun's a weirdly big deal in the movie. Like... Without the gun, things don't work out. That I did not expect this movie to have that gun like keep coming back.
Anyway, so while I was, arranging, right, this movie, I was like, well, my friends, we can't see this anime movie together. We'll see it separately.
Yep.
But I'm sure there will be another anime movie soon for us to watch because they just keep coming, right?
Yep.
And I went and I
just
checked.
Keep coming.
Mamoru Hosoda has been reliably doing one movie every 3 years, so he's not coming back till 2021.
Yep.
Right? Wolfwalkers is coming this year. That's not anime.
Oh, fuck. I forgot about that entirely.
That's not anime, but whatever.
I'm still into it.
It's probably better than anime.
We got
right?
Trigger BNA. Like, we don't even know that much about it yet. There's so much in the pipeline.
And then
but
suddenly...
Masaaki Yuasa.
Right. I suddenly look, and I look at 4Kids, who brings all the anime to the U.S., and it's like... Boom, you guess what? New Masaaki Yuasa like next month. It's like, he was just here.
Yeah, like I feel like we just reviewed two of his movies.
This guy is making too many damn movies.
I mean, look.
Chill out.
Inu-Oh, I don't even know what that's about, is coming out in 2021. He's the director. Okay. Japan Sinks. He's doing an anime adaptation of Japan Sinks. Okay. Not everything sinks about Japan, but Japan Sinks. Apparently, he's also directing Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. Super Shiro, Ride Your Wave is the one we're about to talk about. Devilman Crybaby, the show. Lou Over the Wall, which we just reviewed, 2017. Also 2017, The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which is one of my favorite goddamn anime movies ever.
All right, so this guy's cranking out like 2 a year-ish, right? It's like, man, that is...
Well, it was
whereas Hosoda's doing one every 3. Of course, what Hosoda's latest, Mirai, that was way good.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, man. We're living in a golden age of just anime and animation. Like, this is good time.
We did a show on Mirai, right?
I don't think so.
We saw it.
Yeah, I'll double check.
You saw it, right? With the tree and the weird architect house?
Yeah.
Okay.
We gotta look at all the anime we've seen that we just haven't inexplicably have not reviewed, like BTAS, the first episode. Anyway, so Ride Your Wave seems to also have themes of water as metaphor for death and/or transformation.
Well, didn't the vampire dog movie also have that?
Lou Over the Wall?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lou Over the Wall, I feel like water was definitely a metaphor for death or loss. Maybe transition, like arguably. This one seems like it's more about transition, but could also be about death and or loss.
Who knows? But this is coming to theaters next month. February something.
I mean, all I'll say is that so far, Masaaki Yuasa is basically batting 1,000 with me, and I'm just going to keep riding this train as long as it goes. Train's going to go straight into the water. So in some other news...
Oh yeah, so long ago in the days when like Vertical Comics was like at their peak of bringing you over Tezuka mangas and all that biz, right?
Yep.
And they were the hot shit. You know, you would see them at conventions all the time. I'd be like, hey, and they would ask people like, hey, what manga do you want us to bring to the U.S.? They would actually put out surveys to find out what mangas that fans in the know knew about, because there's so many that we could bring over. Obviously, the only rule was you couldn't mention any mangas that were obviously unavailable from like, you know, Shonen Jump company, Shueisha or whatever, right? But any other company was totally fine because they could license from them. And I would always say, hey, we want to get Saint Young Men. That's the comic we want. Bring that shit over in English. And they would always tell me, because they were so honest and cool, they'd be like, look, that one is like basically number one on our list as well, right? But the problem is the person who made it, you know, the actual creator is like, right? They got issues, right? They don't want to let us do it. So we can't do it, right? So lo and behold, I'm looking through the comic book catalog recently, and there I see it, Saint Young Men Volume 1, and I ordered that shit, and I got it. I'm about to read it. I didn't read it yet, but
So Scott,
I've read it before.
For the listener who
on the
might be
internet.
too young to have listened to us talk about this a long time ago, what is Saint Young Men about?
Saint Young Men, if the name, it's weird, because like you hear the name, and you're like, what the hell is that about?
That sounds like generic.
But then
like,
once you hear what it's about, the name makes perfect sense. It is about Buddha, literally Buddha, the
Yep.
Buddha, and literally Jesus.
the Jesus.
Jesus Christ, with a crown of thorns.
He's just wearing the crown of thorns all the time.
Oh, yeah. They're young men in Japan.
Modern day Tokyo.
Well, modern day is the time of the writing of the comic.
Yeah.
And they're roommates,
Yep.
living out their life, being tourists.
I feel like I need to read the
taking
description
taking
from
a vacation
Kodansha.
from being gods or whatever.
There are saints living in Tokyo, Japan. Buddha the Enlightened One and Jesus, Son of God.
Yes.
After successfully bringing the previous century to a close, the two share an apartment in Tachikawa while enjoying some well-earned time off down on Earth. Buddha pinches pennies like a typical neighborhood housewife, while Jesus is prone to making impulse buys.
This comic is way good if you missed out on it.
I've seen like bits of it, like scanslated, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah,
so.
I read a few chapters of it way back. That's how I knew about it. But, you know, now finally it's coming out in print, and I think actually a whole bunch of it is available if you do Kindle, Comixology, digital.
Someone in the chat's like present day, present time.
But if you want the actual physical versions, legit in English, available Volume 1 now, Volume 2 soon.
I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in some other, I want to do a brief geek bite because I like the Dragon Prince. It's out and it's either done or the first arc is done and it'll get picked up for like a new arc. But the 3 seasons completed.
Right, we watch. I've only seen 2 seasons.
So I watched
gotta watch the third season.
Third season's real good. It rushes a little bit in a few parts, but all I will say, without spoiling anything, is that the ending is really good. It wraps up enough to where if there weren't more, I'd be okay with that.
Well, so they reveal the dad bird that everyone knows since episode 1.
So the dad bird does not get dealt with.
Well, fuck that. Then it can't end.
Yeah,
Not because I don't know, not because I need that reveal, because I know, but because I just need.
I need that
like,
to go somewhere.
I need for anyone to be like, see, I told you so.
Yep. But everything else resolves really well. The stuff that happens in the end is good. But the thing I'll point out in particular is that there's a romantic subplot that once it gets introduced, they just fucking like, Miyake Tamahome, we're done. They're dating. Let's go. Let's move on. It doesn't turn into a typical thing.
Mm-hmm.
It works. And 2, there's a big battle in the last episode. The battle is really, really well choreographed. Better than any big fantasy battle I've seen in most animated shows ever.
Mm-hmm.
The fight choreography of this battle.
Like Cowboy Bebop episode 1, or like Lord of the Rings movie 3.
I would say that the fights at the end of some armies facing off has better mass fighting fight choreography than any Lord of the Rings movie.
Like 5 Deadly Venoms.
Not that level. It's zoomed out. The zoomed out level of like there is a real battle and tactics and strategies and a shield wall.
So one of those
and,
Total
like,
War
breaches.
video games?
Yeah, like imagine one of those Total War video games.
Okay.
Like it avoids the problem of there's a big generic battle and a few main characters and stuff, and then they win. It really focuses on like the ebb and flow of a real battle in a very satisfying way. Like the battle stood out to me, and it only has one silly kid thing. A Hamantashen shows up at one point in the battle.
Okay.
So watch for that. But the show is deeply satisfying. If you were holding out like to decide if Dragon Prince was good before you watch it, it is super worth
We did an
watching.
episode on Dragon Prince already.
Yeah.
You can.
But now it's over. It's great. And otherwise, I think we'll just move on to the main bit because
What about things today?
we have to talk about. I'm just going to skip all those other Geek Bites because I think we got plenty to talk about with. Oh, yeah, Made in Abyss. Talk about that later.
What's my thing today again?
Your thing of the day was
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dragon Prince. Do. Saved. Things of the day. What do you got for me?
So when I was at MagFest, I went and did something on the schedule. There was a little, like a little tabletop game jam, and it was only 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Followed by a 90-minute playtest. And I was like, damn, that is not a large time investment for a 4-day, 24/7 con, right? I will go there and see what's up. So I went there, sat at a table with 3 other nerds. We made as much of a game as you could make in 2 hours.
Was it a good game?
So it wasn't the worst, right? Anyway, and then we sort of play tested one game, maybe that played, whatever. It was someone else's game that was slapped together in 2 hours. It was
So funnily enough,
hard to figure out, what was going on without them.
I missed that session, not because I didn't want to go, but because I stopped to play someone's game. They were demoing their indie tabletop game in tabletop, and they were also going to go to the game jam, but they got so into teaching me the game that they were like, I want to skip the game jam so I can teach you this game.
Anyway, so afterwards, I was just chatting with one of the people I made a game with, and I was like, hey, everyone has a nerdy thing. One guy who I made a game with was like a Twitch streamer or something, right? And everyone has their thing, right? So the guy I was talking to, he said, yeah, I make this like video series, right? It's sort of like it's sort of like an SCA kind of deal, right? Basically, it's a live action, fictional video series that's some fantasy fairy tale kind of thing.
Ooh.
It looks like some SCA people recording a movie in the woods, some LARPers in the woods, with a thing, right? And I was like, oh, okay, so I had really low ass expectations,
Yeah, which
right, from what it amounts to SCA/LARPers in the woods recording a short fictional video series.
Not unwarranted.
All right. So I watch, the first episode. Once I see that it's so short, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I got nothing to lose. This only has like a few hundred views, maybe. Not even, right?
Oh, no, I'm the 20th person to like it.
Yeah, not a lot, right? So I'm like, is this actually going to be good? And you know what? It's not going to blow your mind with its goodness.
Okay.
Right?
I was waiting for you to be like, it's amazing.
No. But it was vastly exceeding my extremely low expectation.
All right.
Right? Like, I
If
started...
any of you are new listeners, coming from Scott, that is a weirdly high compliment.
Like, I started watching it, and I was like, the acting isn't awful. It's like community theater level acting, maybe a little better, right? The videoing, not the worst, right? It's like there's nothing really mind-blowing about it, but it's like, okay, I can see what's happening. The audio sounds good. The sets, are what they are. They look like some nerds slapped them together. And the actual fairy tale was, somewhat moderately compelling. Like, I wanted to know what happened.
All right.
It's about this this lady is on a walking through the woods to visit her friend who lives in the woods house, and she passes a fairy tied up to a tree in the woods and starts bargaining with it, but not like a moron getting fooled by it.
Yep.
And that was pretty good.
Yep.
So there you go.
It's tough because I feel like any magical creature I'd be easily tricked by because I just be hoping they teach me magic.
This is basically, it's like, it was like that common setup of magical creature in the woods trying to fool you.
I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Person who's actually smart and won't be fooled by it.
This is why our friend Skojo has put me on his list of people who cannot ever be allowed to make a deal with Satan, with devils of any kind. Because if I'm walking through the woods and I bump into, like, some sort of like fantasy creature that's like, yo, dog, I'll give you power if you help me out. I would probably help him out.
So it's called Far From the Path, a fairy tale web series.
Segment 1.
I've only watched segment 1, so
All right.
but I presume the further segments are similar in nature.
Yeah, all right, I'm game. So we were having a conversation. I don't know if this was on Geeknights or just in our life about complicated rhythms in songs a little while ago. And I mentioned that I'd just seen a really good video that's really recent where this dude, David Bennett, who has a good YouTube channel, actually explains in detail with specific examples, and they play songs, you can listen to it, what polyrhythm and complex rhythm really is, means, how it works, why it's so hard for humans to do it.
Oh, now that I see the image on your screen, now I understand why what the fucked up problem is.
Yep. Oh, good Lord. There's a great video where it shows trying to get a group of people. One of them is going to clap rhythm A, and one of them is going to clap.
That's the tiny box, right?
Yeah, polyrhythm B.
Or tiny desk.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So this,
But
the cool thing is what it shows, like this is the stuff that I kind of miss when I didn't go into music like as a profession, but when I used to study it, that you think classical music is very like complicated, but like popular music, people kind of just sing and play unless it's electronic music. But even a lot of really like Zeppelin used polyrhythm more often than you realize. Like polyrhythm is actually more common in popular music and rock and metal than it is in like classical or symphonic music. And it's also in a lot of songs that you wouldn't know unless you were a music person, you were listening for it. It also shows sometimes people write music naively, like really good music, but they didn't study a lot of music theory. They just write something that sounds good and complicated. But then if you try to write the sheet music for that, you gotta end up writing fucking polyrhythms because they made something that cannot be expressed easily the way most music is expressed.
Right, because they weren't locked in with that mentality of notes. They just sort of played whatever with whatever timing and rhythm and just sort of playing notes. And it's like, okay, well now we have to take that whatever notes they played, off rhythm, and they didn't play they didn't keep the beat steady. And, right? It's like, okay, well now write exactly what they played actually sounds good. We don't want to change it. We don't want to cram it and fit it in the box of 4/4 or 3/4.
So we're gonna use a 16 3-time signature and fuck it. Here we go.
But we ought to express it using this existing language of written music without inventing a new system that no one will ever understand.
Yep. So
we got to do crazy shit.
So this video explains that in
change the timing every measure.
Yeah. It's way worse than that. The funny thing is, like, random aside, if you ever run into like a busker in the street or like anyone who's kind of just like drumming around, if you can pick out like natural or intuitive rhythms from polyrhythms or complex rhythms, that is how to tell if someone actually like has been trained in music or not. Because very rarely will someone who is just picking out music natively invent this kind of music. In the meta moment, we are back freshly from PAX South 2020. The video of our panel will be on YouTube like this weekend. Also, we've linked to video of the other similar panel that talks about 40 different games. We're linked to the slides from MagFest. We did a panel on the real harm of games, and it wasn't just me and Scott talking out of our butts. We had a doctor sitting next to us who made sure we weren't talking out of our butts, and she was fantastic. And the slides from that panel with all the citations about how video games aren't bad, except in the context probably of gambling and loot boxes, which probably should be banned. Those slides, you can just click here and see the slides and all the citations and read all that research. We will be live pretty soon at PAX East 2020. It's like a month away. And we'll be doing a repeat panel. So if you've seen it before, you don't need to see us there at PAX East, but it'll be all new to a lot of people. We were doing Take Your Fucking Turn, which is a real fun panel to run. Otherwise, the Geek Nights Book Club book is The Tale of Genji. I'm reading through it. I feel like at some point before the end of like the first quarter of the year, we'll do a checkpoint episode on The Tale of Genji. I got some things to say about Genji. So leave it at that. Saved. Boop boop. BTAS. So when I was a kid, I liked Batman, but I didn't read Batman comics.
Well, I mean, so
like I never read a Batman comic until I was an adult.
Before you talk about Batman, right? I just got to say, we just looked to make sure we never did a show on this, and we're surprised we hadn't done a show on it. But I think what we did do is maybe we did a show on like cartoons we watched when we were a kid and talked about this extensively? Because there is
Probably.
no way we have never mentioned this on Geek Nights before.
At
ever.
best, we probably did like cartoons we liked in middle school.
Something like that. But anyway, this show is worthy of its own episode. So
Yeah.
when I
So-
was a kid, much like Ram, I didn't buy a Batman comic, but I watched a Batman movie. And
Which one? Michael Keaton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all the ones. Well,
I think-
all the ones that came out during the 90s.
Yeah.
Right?
But the only ones I liked were the two Michael Keaton ones.
I like the Jim Carrey one. Riddler.
Eh,
I like
it was
that one.
okay.
Anyway,
It's okay.
and the point is, right?
I did not
Is that-
like the one with Robin.
No, or the Arnold Schwarzenegger one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, the point is that we kind of like Batman. If you say what are your favorite things, Batman would never make the list.
It was
right?
weird though because I liked Batman. I knew what Batman was, but I never consumed any Batman media
It's like
until I saw Michael Keaton's
Oh,
Batman.
I watched Adam West Batman before I watched this.
Oh, I did see Adam West Batman, but I didn't. My kid brain, like, I always treated that as a different Batman.
Well, yeah, but the point is that it was one of those things where it's like I like this thing. I watched this thing. I didn't read Batman comics, but I've read Spider-Man's or other things.
Yep,
But
I read X-Men's.
I wouldn't, if you asked me things that I liked, it would never occur to me to mention it.
I would mention Batman.
I would never, if I went to the Toys R Us to buy toys, I would never buy a Batman thing.
Well,
right?
when people ask me what superhero things I liked, as a little kid, I would always say I like X-Men and Batman.
like X-Men and Spider-Man.
Yep.
I didn't Batman. I wouldn't mention it, but I sure as hell, if Adam West Batman was on TV when I was a kid, I would watch it and not want to stop watching it.
Though
right?
one thing, as a little kid, it's totally aside, but Adam West Batman, when I saw the movie, much like with Project A-ko, as a kid, I treated it like a serious movie. I was like, oh
Yep.
shit, that bomb.
Yep.
Oh no, there's nuns.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yep.
Like, I did not get that it was supposed to be a comedy.
Yep. Yep. Kid brain. Anyway, point is that BTAS,
Batman, the animated series.
right, was on like constantly on television
Yep.
in the 90s. And basically you get home from school, it would be on.
Yep.
Usually it would be on like right before dinner.
Yep,
Right?
I watched every
It'd be like
episode I
watch
could.
BTAS, and eat food.
I'm sure I have seen all or nearly all episodes of this multiple times.
I'm sure I've seen close to all of them.
I don't think there's any
Not
episode I have
necessarily-
not seen. There's 85 episodes. It's not even that long.
Okay, yeah, it did get to a point on TV where I was watching syndication and I was not seeing new episodes.
Yep.
There may be one I missed, but who knows? Anyway, so I would purposefully go out of my way to watch other shows.
Yep.
Right? There were certain shows. It's like, oh, I gotta see that. Right? That's like, I'm fighting to see those shows. And if you ask me what I was into, those shows would be at like a Voltron, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
But if BTAS was on, I watched it. Right?
See, I was a little more BTAS.
It was just sort of like, oh, it's on.
BTAS is one of those shows that was in my schedule of it's on at this time. I'm going to watch it.
Oh, so no, see,
Or
for me,
I would set my VCR to record because I had my own VCR. Like I would record it and then watch it later if I couldn't watch it.
See, it's like I would watch it if it was on, but it wasn't like must watch, right? But it's sort of like in hindsight, I didn't realize how much I liked it, just like every other Batman thing. It's like
Yup.
I liked it so much without the self-awareness that was a thing that I was into. So I wasn't taking actions to see more of it, right? Because it wasn't conscious liking, but when it was there, it would entrap me.
But it
And only later in life did I realize, oh shit, that thing was fucking great, and I just didn't realize how great it was at the time.
Like I would say that it is the best incarnation of Batman in film or television.
Clearly.
Like the best Batman movie is Mask of the Phantasm, which is the BTAS movie basically.
Yep.
The best Batman show is BTAS, and the best Batman comic, I guess, is
Comic adaptation of BTAS.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so this show, if you don't know, right, it was pretty much, as far as I can tell, the first show to have that animation style, which was then later used on some other shows. I think there was a Superman that sort of had that.
Yep. Well,
right?
remember, a bunch of the show was outsourced to anime studios.
Right.
And especially watch the first episode again, because I never saw the first episode until way later, but when I was older, when we were living in Beacon, I just watched the first episode of it randomly. The first episode of it is some anime feeling shit. Like right down to like the banter between characters. It feels so much like a 90s anime. But they outsourced a whole bunch of the animation to a bunch of studios, including Sunrise. There's a whole list of them. You can read Wikipedia about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but if you look, like, you know, the main guys are like Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, whatever. Bruce Timm is like the guy who was credited with like that art character design, right? And if you look at the other stuff he worked on, like if you look for him, it'll be like, oh, look, a whole bunch of other stuff that looks like, you know, BTAS.
Yep.
Right?
But why do we like this Batman so much? Like, if we had to go a really high one, it isn't like the grim, dark, modern Batman that no one should really. I don't like that Batman.
But it was set in a, you know,
a retro future,
visually dark, right, Art Deco Gotham City.
Now listen,
right?
If there's things I like on this earth, it's visually dark, film noir style, Art Deco. Like, it's already my jam.
Right. Much like animes, right?
Yep.
It did not, you know, talk down to children and did not dumb itself down. It, you know, it was like,
yep. It wouldn't, like, a lot of people wouldn't get killed outright. They just get poisoned or something.
Right.
But it was still pretty dark, and there was a threat of death.
Right. It was still like an appropriate, you know, for children's cartoon thing, but you know, the storytelling wasn't, you know, like lame-o kind of storytelling, like, you know, Golden Age comics.
There were a lot of twists. There were ambiguous characters. Most of the villains in BTAS were sympathetic. Like, most of them.
If you look at, like, you know, if you look for another show, right, that had the same kind of storytelling going on, you don't see them really come until, you know, like a generation after, with, like, say, a Samurai Jack or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
In terms of American, you know, kids' TV shows with that kind of storytelling.
It also had a lot of multi-episode arcs. It also built upon itself as time went up. It introduced characters to Batman's canon.
Yep, and many existing Batman characters who appeared were significantly different, and, you know, because they were new renditions.
Yep.
So it was almost like not only were there new characters, like Harley Quinn or whatever, but there were also remixes of existing characters that were sometimes close to or nothing like the, you know, previous ones, right?
This is my favorite Joker by far, too.
Yeah, because he's just, you know, he's just a crazy dude.
Also the Mark Hamill. Though, nowadays, like, Poison Ivy was right and Batman was wrong to stop her in almost everything she tried to do.
Yeah. Also, you know, because it was a cartoon, there was a more sort of like, you know, sort of supernatural, superpowered element, because Batman doesn't have superpowers, right?
No, his
But, like,
superpower in the show is money and being smart.
Right, but a lot of the villains, right? If you read a DC comic, especially like, say, a Justice League, right? The superpowered people everywhere, right? You know, it's ridiculous. But the ones in BTAS were all more, you know, not outright. There was, like, Superman doesn't show up in BTAS, right? It's not in DC Universe. It's Batman only.
Yeah,
right?
which is part of why it's great.
So when the villains have some kind of super thing going on, it's usually actually more of a sci-fi kind of deal. Right, wasn't like, I don't
Mr. Freeze, science accident.
Right,
Poison Ivy.
wasn't Clayface also some kind of science thing?
Yep.
Right.
Two-Face, accident.
Not that I know the real stories behind those in the quote canon stories of the original characters.
Yeah.
Right.
But then, like, Harley Quinn, brand new character.
Yep. But yeah, there wasn't, you know, a lot of any super powered people with, like, you know, DC style Superman superpower that I remember, right?
Yeah, there were some moments that edged into that, but usually
there were
was like
definitely
a weird...
fantastical, non-real elements.
Yeah.
Right? But most of it was sci-fi. Like, the most memorable, there are two episodes that I remember the most, even this far late in my life when I haven't seen this show in forever, right? One of them was the one where Batman fights the ninja and the volcano. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Where Batman is, and it was clearly an homage to, like, old kung fu movies, right? And it's like Batman is practicing, like, the touch of death on this dummy in in his hotel room,
and then he puts the armor plate.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I remember that episode, and he got hit with the touch of death, and I was like, oh shit, Batman's dead. And I was, like, really upset.
Yes, he's fighting this ninja guy on these, like, volcano rocks, right? It, like, floating in lava or whatever.
But it also, the show was really kind of brooding and atmospheric, and had a lot of, like, long establishing shots and just, like, slow movement, and it did a lot of the things that I liked in anime at the time.
The other episode that I remember, I think was
Hard-Ack?
2-part. Oh, of course it's Hard-Ack.
Yeah, of course
right?
it's Hard-Ack. I know you.
Right? It's all about this giant evil computer that's so big and is a lot like a giant vacuum tube computer, but it actually is so powerful, has an AI, a real AI, right? And the computer can't even fucking move. It's just a giant computer. It's sort of like the computer in Evangelion, right? Or the 3 computers in Evangelion, if they were just one computer.
Yep.
Right? And somehow that's a villain in a Batman series, and it makes sense.
That's
right?
a good set of episodes.
And then I think
too.
there was actually a set of episodes that was like a sequel because Hard-Ack was such a good idea.
Yeah, I'm
I think
pretty
he-
sure
I
you're
think
right.
he came back.
I feel like I got to rewatch this show just because I haven't seen most of these episodes since I was in like middle school.
Yeah. Of course, the song, right? That's the Batman song.
Yep,
It
like,
wasn't.
that's it.
It wasn't originally the Batman song, right? If you could play that song for someone on the street who's never seen the show and say, "Oh, what's this song?" and they'd be like, "Oh, it's Batman's song."
Yep, kinda
But it's
like
like, gee, I wonder where the hell that came from.
Yep. There's
This show, it didn't exist before this show.
There's 2 Batman songs. There's the silly one and this one. There's one Spider-Man song.
Yeah, the Batman song before this one was that used to be the Batman song until
Yup.
the show came around.
Like, if I was walking in the street and I heard something that even just was the chord structure of the Batman song, my brain would just say, Batman.
Yeah,
Where's Batman?
that's right.
There's Batman coming on. So the music was originally, too, Danny Elfman, because that is who did the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton. People are giving me shit on the stream.
Well, because this came.
I don't call them the Tim Burton Batman movies. I call them the Michael Keaton Batman movies.
Anyway, the point is, but I mean, this was made around the same time as those, right? When did the first episode of BTAS came out?
92.
Right. So at the time, the Batman that was most in people's minds was the Tim Burton Batmans,
Which was also a pretty good Like,
and this came out. This was okay. The kids went to the movie to see Tim Burton Batman. We gotta have the cartoon has got to be close to that feel, right? So that's why you got that.
Yep. But I have this anecdote I just remember when I was a kid because my parents, when the Michael Keaton Batman movie was out, my parents were like, I don't know if this is okay for the kids to see. Like, we should check it out. So my dad went to see it. He came home, and I remember my mom was like, so, how was it? And he was like, it was dark. And which makes sense.
Yeah.
And she was like, ooh, really? Well, would it be for the kids? He's like, no. Like, it's dark, but also, like, it's actually dark. Like, I couldn't see a lot of what was going on.
Yeah, it was dark.
It was directly dark and metaphorically dark.
Yeah, it's like when you watch BTAS, it's like it's always night. It's basically rarely ever is Batman. I mean, it happens sometimes, but rarely is Batman or any scene out in the sunlight during the day.
Yep.
Maybe like at the end of an episode, it'd be like, daylight. To be like the episode's over. But most of the time, they're either in a cave, in a dark building, out in a dark street. It's just dark all the time, and everything around is dark. There aren't brightly colored flowers or anything except for contrast.
Yep.
Right?
So overall, like, this show holds up crazy well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if it came out today, it would get acclaim. Like, this was like Batman, the animated series coming to Netflix, and it never existed before, and you'd like none of this existed. I think it would be one of the top shows.
Right. Also, it's like you look at other, adaptations of things into kids' cartoon, and it's like
They tend to dumb them down.
every other superhero, cartoon that I can think of that was adapted from comic book. Like, there isn't a good Spider-Man cartoon.
No.
Like, is there a good Superman cartoon? It's like, I don't think so.
There is the one
even
that
the
kind of looks
other,
like this, but I remember watching a couple episodes and just not being into it.
even the other Batman cartoons, like there's a Batman Beyond and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? It's like, there's so many of them. I think there's like maybe like a Justice League cartoon. I don't fucking know.
There is one good X-Men cartoon, not the Fox one. That one was only good when I was a dumb kid. It's not
Right.
actually good.
The point is, there's so many of
But
them. and-
Wolverine and the X-Men was actually like legit good.
all right, there are many that are good or not so good, but there's none even close to this level of good. This is
No.
like an extreme level of greatness that has like not been replicated ever.
BTAS is the GOAT Batman. Like, for real.
Like, there might be an argument to even say, like, would Batman even be a popular thing today
If BTAS
if not for this cartoon?
I can definitely
would Batman
say,
have not have carried its popularity forward?
Yep. I feel like if BTAS had not existed as a kid, Batman would have just been Adam West to me. And
Like, if this had been a crappy cartoon that ended quickly and wasn't re-syndicated and re-shown and so great and remembered, where would Batman be now? Would they have gone into that pool again so frequently for all those other movies that carried it through to today?
But most of those movies, like, not to get on a tangent about Batman, most Batman movies aren't that good.
Right. So if it wasn't for this cartoon carrying it forward, they weren't making those, it's like they made a bad movie and then they made another bad movie. Why?
Yep.
Because of this cartoon, there were still Batman fans. If it
Yep.
was only those movies,
And then there was a
the first bad movie would have been the end of it.
I feel like Batman would have been Adam West to me, and then Michael Keaton, and then after Michael Keaton, I would have thought Batman was dumb. Then I would have read Frank Miller's comic and been really into it, because that was good.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would have seen that every other Batman after that is just trying to like out grimdark the Frank Miller Batman comic, and then I wouldn't have been into it.
Mm-hmm.
So BTAS is the greatest Batman has ever been, and possibly the greatest Batman ever will be. And I feel like we shouldn't talk about Mask of the Phantasm because that deserves its own like dedicated.
Maybe that
review.
is maybe we did do an episode of Mask of the Phantasm.
Couldn't find it. I'm gonna look for. I'm gonna poke around.
I feel like we definitely did. Anyway, the point is, Batman as a character was like reinvented several times, right? There's the original detective-y Batman, right? Then you get the sort of cartoony Silver Age Batman that you see in comics and also Adam West show, right? And then you get the Neil Adams Batman, right? Who then gets even darker into the Frank Miller Batman, right? Batman has been redone in different ways so many times, right? And is he still being redone? But those first few redoings were like major redoings, right? It was like they were trying to find what Batman should be, and they sort of fell on deciding, like, okay, Batman is like extra dark somewhere, right? James Bond sort of, but also, really creepy and messed up. It's somewhere in there, right?
Yeah.
And that they sort of, Batman, I feel like, has stayed in this one spot for a long time and hasn't moved a bunch. And I would really like to see another Batman redoing, right?
So
it needs a new take that's as wildly different from the current take as the, Adam West take was from the BTAS take.
and there is
right?
precedent for that because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I think, is the best Spider-Man movie ever made, bar none.
Oh, movie, yeah, sure.
Show,
Thing is, Spider-Man has actually lots of great Spider-Man comics.
yeah, comics are more complex, but other than comics, I think Into the Spider-Verse is the best non-comic Spider-Man that has ever been made.
Yeah, they're not.
Like,
I mean, any
the gulf
in
is
video or
wide.
TV, because there's a lot of Spider-Man things, but none of them are that great.
No.
There's just
But the thing is,
there's not any good ones.
I feel like you can reinvent Batman to get it away from its current state by just making Batman the Animated Series. So just make more in that style. Don't even change anything.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to be like, oh, make more of the same, but they can't, and that's why. This is actually something I was thinking of the other day. Sort of, we can end the show on this crazy thought, right?
All right.
So we've been watching lots and lots of Link to the Past randomizer, right? And why does that really? Why are people playing these randomizers and keep playing them? It's because they want more of a thing.
Yep.
Right?
If there was an Advance Wars randomizer, that'd be the end of my life.
Exactly. You want more of a thing, and they're not making more of that thing, right? So we found a way to use technology to make more of the thing we want, right? And it's like, you go to a restaurant and you eat steak. Well, you can always eat more steak because it's not like you're eating the exact same experience every time. But when you watch a movie, it's literally the exact same movie every time. You rewatch BTAS, you're rewatching the same exact thing, pixel by pixel, second by second. It doesn't change at all. So you run out eventually, and it gets old, and you can't get more, right? That randomizer allows you to get more Link to the Past.
Yep.
Lots more.
But
of
it is diminishing returns.
the same way that you don't get bored of eating ice cream, you won't get bored playing, Link to the Past randomizer because you're freshening it, right? It's not the same every time. As technology advances, we should be able
Batman the randomizer.
we should be able to develop, right? You see lots of things now where it's like, I used, machine learning to read a bunch of books and then write a new book in the same style, and it's kind of silly and not there yet, right? There will, I think, in our lives, we probably won't get to download our brains into a computer or Ghost in the Shell or, travel, super far in space really fast or anything like that. But if we survive, we should be able to develop a technology that can just spit out BTAS episodes that are legit and also new.
I await that day.
Yeah.
All right, pretty good show.